On the Ford Territory, this time transmission oil change. So just a service procedure specific to the diesel all-wheel drive has the 6R80 transmission. This will be a fairly short video because this is the same transmission fitted to the Ford F-150. There's already some excellent guides. Ford Maku Loco, I think, has some excellent guides, and I'll leave links to those below. It does apply that it is the same transmission, it is the same procedure, so some links to some local parts. I'm going to cover two aspects. Firstly, drain and fill, an oil filter change. Contaminants do build up and cause problems in this transmission. Changing every 100,000 Ks is worthwhile. Second is optional, is changing the valve body seals. So definitely recommend changing those valve body seals if you're having shifting problems. Transmissions do not have an oil drain plug, so it's a messy job. When you're dropping that whole, you're having to drop that whole pan, so you've got a waterfall of oil coming down. It has a reusable pan and gasket. Main points of difference to the Ford F-150 and other vehicles. Firstly, the oil filter. Each vehicle has a different pan, so they have different filters with different intake length. Access does seem to be quite similar. I would recommend for the Territory you remove the underbody cover. This big cross brace will be in the way, but I don't recommend you remove. They're often held in with red Loctite, very difficult to remove and not very difficult to work around. They all have the dipstick in the same position, I think, which is on the right hand side up there. What makes it easier on the Ford Territory, there's no exhaust system running across here. Okay, the exhaust is all the way back here. Trying to check that oil hot, you're less likely to burn your arm on the exhaust. Oil filter. Finding the right part is not easy. Part number on here, so I can tell you exactly what came out of my 2015 Territory. You'll notice there's two part numbers listed here. I'm giving you the first one because this one only has, look, I can't guarantee it's the same on the SZ1, so double check before you fit. This is critical, this height here. On mine, I've measured from the flat here to that, 25 millimeters. Some vehicles were fitted with a much longer one. If you get one of those, it can contact the transmission pan and result in oil starvation. Double check it's the same before you put it in there. Some of them are stepped. I don't know if this makes a difference. For those step ones, they sometimes measure the intake of that second step. Another distinct feature, so this one has 3 little pegs there. Some have 4. I don't know how critical these 3 versus 4 pegs are, if that makes a difference. I'll leave some part numbers below. I am glad I'm replacing this filter. The crap is built up on it. New one, it's not simply a metal mesh, it is actually some sort of filter medium. To remove that little tiny dipstick, need a 19 millimeter. It's actually 2 pieces. They can come out together. Those are 8 millimeter bolts. I'll break them loose, leaving 2 done up. This is going to be messy, so we'll leave a couple at one end to control the mess and try and direct it down to this end. Away, eliminating it, puts the pan out, and just leaving that to drip. Removing this electrical connector. There we go, I've got that little tab, and undoing that removes the electrical side. We're not replacing the connector itself, just the sleeve that goes into. That's what has the O-rings in it. This white clip is retaining the sleeve. Push that tab in, pull down. T27s to remove the valve body. So there's a couple of short ones along here. And then we've got the long ones. Now there's 2 lengths of bolt. Some of these T27 bolts are holding the 2 halves of the valve body together. We don't want to remove those. We just want to remove the, I think it's 11, that are holding the entire valve body unit into the transmission. So not these little ones. Yes, on the bigger, heavier ones. I'll leave one in place, again with the oil pan to catch more drips. I'll take out that last bolt and lower down the entire valve body. There's a few small pieces that can fall and get damaged. Okay, that valve body's out. That's fragile. Temperature control on the oil cooler. On the transmission, there's the bridge seal I'll be replacing, and these other ones. Some of them are color-coded, blue, green. I'm not sure if some of the earlier Territories had a 4th one here. Okay, we'll put this bridge seal together. One of those in here. So that's a harder plastic, and that's the actual rubber seal in there. Okay, so the new seals are in. Your bridge seal, replace the blue with blue, the black with black. The green one I've replaced with an orange one. That's what was in the kits. It seems to measure the same size, and don't mix them up with the old ones if they do fall out. Now there's nothing but friction holding these up underneath as you install the valve body. Transmission assembly lube to sort of hold them in place. Honestly, I would say this is a two-person job, getting this back in with those seals and springs in place. Main thing to check is that your gear selector is slotted in that little gap there. Torquing these down in sequence. Connector sleeve is ready to go back in. I've put a little bit of fresh transmission oil on those O-rings and seals. A little projection in there, so that needs to slide in. It takes a little bit of coaxing to get this white retainer clip pushed all the way in. Put your connector back in. Clean up those gasket surfaces, ready for the pan to go back on. The pan's all cleaned up, gaskets, the old gaskets cleaned up, magnets cleaned up, so I'm adding an extra magnet. That goes in next. Sounds like the trick is to put it in without any oil on here dry. We'll put this in and then the pan in place nice and quick. Once the filter's in place, get that pan on nice and quick with the gasket, and get one or two of those 8mm bolts done up by hand just to hold it in place. Then you can go around, put them all in, torquing them up to 12 Newton meters, and you're working in a crisscross fashion to evenly snug that down. The next step is refilling the transmission. Do this with the car level, lower it fully down onto the ground. We need a transmission fluid that is Ford Mercon LV is the standard we're looking for. In this case, I'm using the Penrite ATF LV, 5 and 10 litres. Keep the receipt, take back what you don't need. And you'll need something like this to pump the fluid into the transmission. Oil is added through where the dipstick tube goes. Put in about 4 litres. Then with the engine running, you're going to add another litre at a time and keep checking until you get up to the bottom of the hashed area on the dipstick. And this is just a quick recap, so follow the Ford Tech Loco video specifically on this refilling procedure. Doing the oil and transmission filter on the 6R80, highly recommended. The other parts that I've replaced are optional extras. They are a lot more fiddly once you start pulling that valve body out and trying to hold all those pieces in place while you get that valve body back in. Okay, so I hope that's useful, and hope you managed to find the parts you need at a good price.